Welcome back, Book Fiends, to Wicked Good Books, a channel dedicated to books and things book adjacent. My name is Nick, I'm the host of this channel. Book Fiends, we have arrived at the end of the year, the end of 2021. I know this year has had its hardships and ups and downs, and I know a lot of us are looking forward to the new year. I did read a lot of great books this year. I read about, going by my Goodreads number, I think 102 is where I hit. My goal was 100. I stopped at 102. I'll probably end up finishing 103 probably tomorrow, to be honest. I don't think that book is going to make this list, but I want to put together a list of my personal favorite reads of 2021. Originally, this was going to be a two-part video, but it ended up being way too long, so I'm going to try and condense it down a little bit and kind of rapid fire go through this list. Now, I'm not going to be talking too much about what each book is about. A lot of these are probably known by you if you run in the BookTube or Bookstagram or book adjacent communities. But I'm going to touch on some of my favorites and why they stood out to me and why they impacted me so. And now, I've been a reader my whole life, but not nearly as avid as I've been these past couple of years, where I've been reading quadruple the numbers that I would normally read in any given month. And a lot of that has to do with my job change, and a lot of that has to do with me discovering audiobooks or rediscovering audiobooks as a learned skill and getting better at listening to them, and it kind of fitting my lifestyle, both as a parent and as a writer and as someone who has a full-time job. But it's allowed me to consume and enjoy and retain so much more stories than I had in the past. And this past year, I read 102, going on 103 really great books. I think only two of them, which I won't mention here, I really didn't care for, and one I really loathe. A lot of these books pretty much range from 4 to 5 stars, mostly in that 4.55 range. Now, the ones towards the end of the 5-star reads, and I generally only give out a 5-star rating for a book that really just impacted me on a cellular level, that just either shook me to my core or changed the way I think about the world or myself or those around me, affected me as a writer or as a person or as a reader, just like those big impact, Mass Effect books. And there's quite a few of them on this list. I had a big year for new favorites. In fact, you'll probably see a bunch of them behind me actually on the shelves. I actually read a lot of these books with the Wicked Good Books Patreon community on Discord. We do monthly buddy reads, and a lot of these books made it onto those polls. That communal experience of reading them with other people just enhances the read sometimes, and a lot of these books were made 10 times better by reading them with others. So let's just focus on the top books that I really enjoyed this year, that really stood out to me, that had me thinking about them long after finishing the final page. So let's dive right into it. First up, we got Star Eater by Kirsten Hall. This is a book about cannibalistic nuns in a alternate Earth fantasy setting. It's pretty dark, definitely not for everyone. And while I had some issues with some of the dialogue and some of the story choices, I really enjoyed it overall, and it found myself even now still thinking about it. And I don't know if it was just the world building of the characters or how cool the magic looked. Like, it was called Lace Work, and it kind of reminded me of like a darker version of Wheel of Time's Weaving. The cover is absolutely gorgeous. I'll put it right here so you can check it out. It was actually on my most anticipated reads for 2021. So I was really happy that I got to it. I read it with a friend. We actually did the audiobook. The only thing that really bummed me out was that I learned from Kirsten Hall that she's not writing any more books, at least not right now, in this world. It is kind of a standalone, and kind of bums me out because I was left with many questions, and I wanted to kind of live in this world as dark and gritty as it was at times, and kind of unsettling. I don't know. There's something about the world that I just really, really enjoyed. There's some of the atmosphere that just gave me this gothic magic vibe, but also had its beauty to it. Even the magic, as nasty and gross as it kind of was, like cannibalism is like on my short list of things I just avoid, like the plague. Type of content that really grosses me out, I usually stay clear from it. But the way it's handled in this book and how these nuns consume flesh to rejuvenate their magic, just really cool and very unique. I had never read anything like that before. Next on the list is Helm of Midnight by Marina Lusseter. This one, I enjoyed it while I was reading it. I really liked it, actually. And then after I finished it, I was like, okay, that was just okay. And then I found myself, similar to Star Reader, I kept going back and thinking about it. And then I saw the book cover and the blurb for the sequel coming out and found myself thinking about it more. And the characters and the world building was so unique and right up my alley when it comes to sci fantasy with some Bloodborne vibes, like the video game Bloodborne. It just really stuck out to me. I'm a sucker for spiritual magic, or any time that authors explore the afterlife or ghosts in a unique way. And I feel like Marina did something really special with the enchantment, any items in this world that allow these characters to reach out beyond the grave and speak to different people and different memories, and almost like live through these people's ghosts. And that to me was super interesting. I also read some nonfiction this year. While I really enjoyed Dave Grohl as a storyteller, I absolutely adored This Bright Future by Bobby Hall. For those who don't know who Bobby Hall is, his rapper name is Logic. He's my favorite rapper, and I enjoy his writing. His fiction book Supermarket was really great. I read that last year, and this was his first take at nonfiction, telling the story of his life, his come up, what he went through as a child up till now. And not only did I find it super relatable and found myself really kind of living his life through his shoes and kind of relating to a lot of his struggles that he had gone through, we kind of like grew up at the same time. It really was really genuine. It felt like sitting down at the table and like talking to this person and them kind of sharing their story with us. And the audiobook is narrated by him, which I always love when memoirs are read by the writers. Kind of adds that extra touch that makes it feel a little more sincere and a little more one-on-one and raw. And that was a great way to describe the book, actually. I was actually going to do a whole review of it, but those who know Logic know he's pretty great. You don't need to hear me talk about how great that memoir was. If you like his music, you'll probably dig his memoir. Or if you want to learn about a young musician kind of coming up during the birth of the internet and the digital age, and kind of going through the music industry during that huge change and how he was able to kind of navigate it and kind of make his own way. Great book for dreamers and for musicians and artists out there. Definitely check it out. And the physical copy is pretty cool too. It's got a lot of photographs in it. I always love when they have that extra content in nonfiction. All right, now for some of my 5-star reads. These next few books are the ones that just totally impacted me on a cellular level, just floored me, shook me, just rocked me to my core, and will stick with me long after I turn those final pages. I will definitely be rereading these books in the future. Many of them are now on the top 25 and top 30 lists that I like to make so much. One of those books was Piranesi by Susanna Clark. This was a really delightful book. It had dark moments, it had charming and beautiful moments of light and hope, narrated by Chiwetel Ejiofor, I was a big fan of his from Firefly, Serenity, I think, actually. Loved him in that movie, and the fact that he narrated Piranesi just added that extra layer to it. Sometimes actors and actresses can't pull off the narration. It's a very different beast, I think, acting and audiobook narrating, but can be similar, and there can be some crossover. And there's something about the way he read Piranesi and brought that character to life that just totally had me under its spell. It's actually the first book I read by Clark, so I'm thinking I should probably pick up Mr. Norrell. Is it Mr. Norrell and Something Strange? I'm sure someone will tell me in the comments, but that's definitely on my list. I really enjoyed Piranesi. It had all the abstract art history, just layers and layers of mythology and lore and science mixed with pop culture, mixed with art history. And I feel like me and my undergrad would have loved this book, and I really enjoyed it. I also read Pariah, a Beckwin novel by Dan Abnett. This is a Warhammer 40k book. Now, I've been a pretty big fan of Warhammer 40k from a distance. I've never actually played it. I used to paint the minis for fun, and I've only recently gotten into the video games and some of the books. And the character of Beckwin really stood out to me, probably because it reminded me a little bit of the Locktoon Girls. For those unfamiliar with Warhammer 40k, it is a tabletop miniatures game that sort of birthed the term grimdark. And these books are definitely embodiments of grimdark, and not in a way that is I feel like a lot of grimdark suffers from diminishing returns, and I don't think that's the case, at least not with these books that I read. I found myself kind of still feeling pretty hopeful and pretty jazzed up by the end of the books. And you definitely should check them out if you're a fan of dark fantasy, dark sci-fi, with tons of lore and tons of art backlogs that you can kind of search through and put together the world in your mind as you read it. But I just picked up this book randomly because the cover, it's both of them actually, the sequels, this is beautiful too. The cover art is gorgeous. I read the books, really enjoyed them, found out that there's actually a huge backlog of Warhammer books, and as not just Warhammer books, but Warhammer books that have to do with this character. So I've gone back, and throughout the whole year, I read the entire Eisenhorn series. Really enjoyed it. Not nearly as much as Pariah. I think I still stand by liking Pariah more than the Eisenhorn novels. I enjoy Beckwith novels more than the Eisenhorn novels, but those books really informed the backstory of these characters, and I'm very much looking forward to starting Penitent, the sequel to Pariah, in 2022. Next is SLEWFOOT by Brom. This was on the most anticipated releases of 2021 for me as well. Absolutely adored it, as I do almost everything Brom touches. His art, his prose, the way the audiobook is done, especially this one had a lot of singing. The main character did a lot of singing, and it came across so beautiful. I wish I could remember the name of the audiobook narrator, but she was phenomenal. She killed it. She killed that audiobook. So good. That one tells almost like a very typical story of the whole Puritans gunning after this redhead girl in the woods who seems to have an affinity for herbs and healing salves and charms that she learned from her mother. And it turns out she's a witch, but not necessarily in the traditional sense that we've been kind of seeing in a lot of media. And there's something really special about it in the supernatural characters she meets along the way. And it was pretty brutal all the way through. I would definitely not survive in that time period, because I would just be punching Puritans all day long in the face for some things they try to get away with, and succeeded, unfortunately, in a lot of cases. But at least in SLEWFOOT, we get a little satisfaction by the end, and I really enjoyed it. I'm very much looking forward to what Brom does next. I actually got a signed print and a signed book from him of SLEWFOOT, and it's gorgeous. I can't wait to frame it. We also read Empire the Vampire by Jay Kristoff as a server. This was a big one in our Wicked Good Books community, in our Discord, our Patreon Discord. This was a book on a lot of our lists, and we all kind of said I think we actually had a dud of a book club read that month that we just all were not vibing with, and we all just either finished it or DNF'd it and jumped right into Empire the Vampire. And across the board, everyone seemed to really enjoy it. And what was interesting is we all kind of read it at different paces, so we all got to kind of like read it, enjoy it, and then look back and kind of almost like a marathon, like passing the baton and reliving these big moments throughout that book with our friends who were reading it too. And by the end, we were all pretty emotional and invested in it. And I'm very much looking forward to what Jay does next in this world. Vampires are not my favorite, but Jay made me feel all the Castlevania vibes that I've been dying to feel in book form. And very much looking forward to seeing where he takes the story and where we find Gabe in the sequel. Next, we have More Do by Alex Phoebe. Now, this is a book that I read like last month. It really stuck with me. There's a lot of dark, heavy scenes that really triggered my anxiety and had me kind of spiraling a bit. And one scene in particular that really, really bothered me, that it actually kept me up at night. But overall, the book was absolutely brilliant. Very reminiscent of Titus Grown, Mervyn Peake's series, which is one of my favorite books of all time. Mordu tells the story of this orphan boy kind of climbing up from the gutter, literally, to rise above his station and try and change his reality. Very typical, I wouldn't say coming of age story, but rags to riches. And I wouldn't really say riches, even just rags to power story. Very Oliver Twist and Willy Wonka energy, but through a lens of like Titus Grown, but times 100, because there's some pretty nasty stuff in this world, and some pretty creative stuff too. There's some unsettling imagery that, like I mentioned earlier, kept me up in the middle of the night. But I do know this is going to be a series, so I'm very much looking forward to how Alex can make amends for some of the atrocities he made me endure with this book. But overall, excellent book. The prose is just beautiful. It is like some of the best purple prose I've read since Aaron Morgenstern's Star of the Sea. Highly recommend it if you do like heavy world building, but also loaded with very abstract ideas and soft. It's tough. It's heavy world building, but it also has a lot of soft world building and soft magic to it, where a lot of things don't get explained and then some things get overly explained. So it definitely fits in that Titus Grown area if you like that book series, but definitely check out More Do if you're into that kind of thing. Next, we got Revelator by Dale Gregory. This one was actually a big surprise for me. It was an impulse buy. I saw the cover at the store. It reminded me of an album cover from the band Royal Blood, I think. Is it Royal Blood? Yeah, I think it's Royal Blood, which I later found out was because it's the same artist. It's really great. Some cosmic horror, historical mystery thriller. It's got that moonshine, early America, backwoods, Southern Gothic feel, but with a twist, and that twist being Lovecraftian cosmic horror, which I was not expecting. I thought the whole time it was going to either be magical realism or more symbolic, and I was not. I was surprised and not disappointed. It was exactly the kind of read I look for during the spooky season. So if you haven't checked that out, this one was a surprise hit for me. The prose was amazing. It almost made my favorite book of the year, to be honest, had I not read a few titles that I'm about to get to. But yeah, definitely check that one out. That one's I don't see a lot of people talking about it. And if you're a fan of horror and in the historical context or Lovecraftian cosmic horror or weird horror, definitely check this book out. Most recently, I finished Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. Really love this one. I'm a sucker for not necessarily whodunits, but I love Agatha Christie. Hercule Poirot is one of my favorite detectives. That's a Sherlock, and I really enjoy Murder in the Orient Express, both the film and the books. I just love, and Knives Out, that's another one I really enjoy. And so Devil in the Dark Water was a no-brainer for me. I was still surprised at how incredible the writing was, and how Turton was able to conjure this atmosphere on this boat. Incredibly unsettling, but also like I felt like I was there, living there, and felt comfortable in that space. I could imagine it perfectly. I could like close my eyes and draw it. That's how vivid this setting was on this boat. But I won't say too much about it because there's a lot of spoilers to that one. But finished that one recently. I also did the audiobook on that one's really great, and very much looking forward to what he does next. I actually think I'm going to pick up his first book. I think it's The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Newcastle, I think. Very much excited to check that one out. Very impressed by his writing. He's definitely hit the top of my list for authors to watch moving forward. All right, so we got Master of Jinn by P. Jelly Clark. This is another one we read as a community for the Wicked Good Books Patreon Discord. Absolutely was floored by this one. This was one of my favorite books of the year. We actually read the two novellas and the short stories that kind of come before this book as like a primer before we started Master of Jinn, and totally blown away by it. Again, the audiobook was amazing. It really set the tone for the way the characters talked and their accents and their culture. It was very much this gaslight, kind of steampunk Egypt, but so much more than that. And man, it reminded me a lot of something Guillermo del Toro would direct. It made me think of like Hellboy and Shape of Water a lot in terms of like the feel and the aesthetic for those books and those worlds and those movies. But Master of Jinn, you follow this this detective of sorts who solves supernatural crimes and mysteries throughout the city of Egypt. It's an alternate reality where magic and magical beings are out in the world and out in the public. People know about them. And so you have this division of police, we'll call them, that sort of investigate and solve crimes around these supernatural entities. And if you like Ghostbusters and you like Hellboy, especially Hellboy 2 or the comics, this one kind of reached that energy. But it also kind of gave me a vibe of Fantastic Beasts, the movie, in terms of like the aesthetic, the look of the film, the way people dressed and how they talked. You got, bowler caps and suits and canes. I can't speak highly enough of that one. I really hope he writes more in that world because I will buy pretty much anything he writes. I also read Ring Shout by that same author. Phenomenal book, and very much hoping we get to return to the Dead Jinn universe. So we got Hyperion and Fall of Hyperion by Dan Simmons. Those who've been following my channel for the year know how I feel about these books, how much I love them. So I won't spend too much time on them, but those were two of the best books that I read this year. And I was going to read books 3 and 4, but I loved the first two so much that I really wanted to give some space between 3 and 4, just in case I would be let down in some way or my expectations would be let down. I've heard they're great, so I have no doubt that Simmons will blow my mind like he did with the first two books, but I kind of want to enjoy the first two for this year and start 3 and 4 next year, early January. Then we got The Books of Babel by Josiah Bancroft, which I just finished book 3 of. I'm pending book 4. I kind of wanted to go into 2022 starting strong and reading the final book in that series, but I have plans of making other content around The Books of Babel because it has become one of my all-time, within my top 10 favorite book series of all time. Totally blown away by Josiah Bancroft's writing and his world. His characters have become near and dear to me. They're some of my favorite characters in fiction, which I was not expecting. I was expecting to enjoy them and enjoy the books as they were and be able to converse and talk to other fans. I didn't expect to fall completely head over heels for this book series, this world that Bancroft has created. And part of the reason why I own book 4. Part of the reason why I haven't started it yet is because I don't want to go. I don't want it to be over yet. Because I know once I finish it, I'm going to be bummed. So if you haven't picked up Senlin Ascends, I highly recommend it. My wife kind of put it perfectly, and she said it better than I could ever say it. And this is just me talking about the books to her out of excitement. She's never even read them. But me describing some of the events of the books of Abel, she was like, this kind of reminds me of Wizard of Oz and Treasure Planet. And if you love those two things, I'm not saying they're exactly like the books of Abel, but for me anyways, those are the images and the energy that these books bring to me, and I am so thankful that I got to read them this year back to back to back. I'm also extremely grateful that I wasn't there at the very beginning, because if I had to wait for these books, like I'm sure a lot of you all had to, I'd have went crazy. But I'm very much looking forward to finishing the 4-book series early 2022. Last two on the list, we got Dark Age by Pierce Brown. Y'all know I love Red Rising. Pierce Brown is one of my all-time favorite authors. I love all the books, but Dark Age, Close with Morning Star, just hit different. It shook me to my core. It's been a long time since I've read a book that actually like triggered my anxiety, not necessarily in a bad way, but in a way that like it affected me down to my core. Dark Age totally blew me away, which I kind of expected it to, because I heard so much about it being a dark book and a book that was going to break my heart and crush my soul, and it did all those things and more. And I love it for it. And I'm not really sure why. I'm not sure what that says about me as a person, but Dark Age is my favorite Red Rising book. It has some of my favorite character moments, some of my favorite big moments, and my favorite small moments. I literally can't talk about this book without giving spoilers away, because it's book 5 and double series, 2 trilogies basically. I've heard that book 6 may be coming out next year, so fingers crossed. But yeah, Dark Age really shook me to my core. It triggered a lot of anxiety and concern, and sort of wiped me out for a few weeks after. Like, there's book hangovers, and then there's like books and movies that kind of bother you, that kind of like just, they don't leave you and they make you kind of feel some type of way. And normally I would avoid books like that, but this was different. This was, it just, I think whatever Pierce Brown was trying to do with the emotion and the mood with that book, he succeeded, at least with me. And last on the list, I'm sure you could have already guessed it, those who know me, or have been following this channel, or a part of my Discord, or follow our podcast on Spotify, Gideon the Ninth and Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. These two books have meant a lot to me, both as a writer and a reader. They've changed the person I've become and the types of books I look for now in the future, as well as changed the way I viewed writing. This is coming from someone who went to school for writing. These books completely shook the foundations of what I learned in school, and they are affecting me both on a professional level, as a creative, and as an individual. I am mad at myself for not reading them sooner, but they're here now. I love them dearly. They are my favorite books of all time. Harrow being my number 1 favorite book. Desert Island top pick, top 5, number 1. Harrow the Ninth. I have been asked to be cremated with it. I love it dearly. And the fact that we're getting 4 books now, and that Note in the Ninth comes out next year, is just the highlight of 2021. It's just been really what's been getting me through this year, to be honest with you. But I checked out Gideon the Ninth and Harrow the Ninth this year on multiple suggestions, and I had heard about the books before, but was really convinced it was urban fantasy for some reason, and kind of just kept pushing them off, and I just, man, if I had a time machine, there's a lot of things I should responsibly do, but I'd be very tempted to not go back in time and just take my copy Harrow the Ninth and slap myself with it and be like, here, read this, like, or with Gideon, hit myself with Gideon first and be like, read this and don't question me. Not a big shocker there. I love these books dearly. They mean a lot to me. I literally created an entire podcast where we're doing a reread of these books. That's how much it means to me. You can find us down on Spotify. I'll put a link down below if you want to join us and join the conversation. If you're reading Gideon the Ninth and you want a reread buddy, that's kind of what it's for. But we have some pretty specialized content coming out. That's more of like stage play stuff that we're working on for it. So I'm really excited to share that with you guys. But that's my list for my favorite reads of 2021. I know a lot of these are probably obvious picks for me if you follow my channel and know anything about me, but I read a lot of great books this year, and it was hard to make this list and cut it down because every book just kind of meant something different to me. And I won't say last year wasn't as good of a reading year, but I can say there's a lot more 3 and low 4-star ratings last year that didn't really stick with me. And these books that I finished this year are books I will be taking with me into the new year. What are some of your favorite books of 2021? Drop them down below in the comments. I'd love to talk to you guys about them and see if any of ours line up, or if there are maybe some books I hadn't heard of. This is the final video I'll be posting for 2021, guys. I hope you have a safe and happy new year, especially the safe part. Be careful out there. Get vaccinated. Get your boosters. Stay inside if you're not feeling well. Care about others. Kindness is key. Please, I can't express that enough. As always, I am grateful for your support for this entire year of the channel, and I look forward to creating more content with you guys in the new year. So stay wicked.